When the train pulled into the San Diego station about 11 that evening, we were immediately rounded up and herded, like cattle, into trucks, by uniformed Marines screaming stupid obscenities at us. We were driven to the Marine depot and unloaded with more insults, such as shitheads, fuckheads, etc. After we were checked in and accounted for, we double-timed, ran to a barack and told to get some sleep, because we would be needing all the rest we could get if we expected to survive boot training. The next morning I was suddenly awakened by more blaring insults that caused me to jump out of my lower bunk and strike my head on the metal frame of the top bunk. The resulting pain was so intense that I, also, started doing some shithead calling. My angry reaction didn't seem to bother the little private first class with the big mouth, because he continued through the barracks shouting, "Alright you shitheads, let go of your cocks and grab your socks." My first day at boot camp was a real eye-opener. Besides almost splitting my skull, someone stole my jacket while I was showering. Fortunately, I kept none of value in the pockets other than a handkerchief. I considered the loss of the jacket inconsequential, compared to the pony I had dug out of it and a shakedown episode occurring earlier that morning which later might prove beneficial. I wasn't allowed to dwell on these experiences very long because we were quickly called out and double-timed all around the base. After breakfast, they ran us to the supply building where we were issued shoes, clothing, an M1 rifle, and other miscellaneous items. We were then assigned our living quarters in the Quonset hut area, in which we stowed our gear. After this, they ran us to the barber shop, where we were sheared like sheep, then returned to our hut and told to change into fatigues and pack our civics to mail home. This was a busy and exhausting first day. By nightfall, we had an idea of what was in store for us for the next 6 weeks. The general consensus among the group, including myself, was that we should have joined any branch of the service other than the Marines. I thought this ironic. The second day we were assigned our drill instructors, DIs, who were Sergeant J. W. Wood and Corporal R. J. Polk, and placed into platoon number 1124. Our training had begun. First, we were told we were to be physically shaped up by getting the lard off. This I soon learned was to be achieved by various calisthenics I thought reasonable, and by other methods I felt were sadistic and insane. One mad practice was to put us in full field packs with rifles and march us down to the beach during the hottest part of the day, then make us run in circles in heavy sand until we collapsed. We were told by the DI. This would make men out of us. I almost laughed, thinking I really deserved this experience for not listening to Tony and the gang when they told me to stay home and get rich while fucking my brains out. One day, as I was lying exhausted and overheating in the sand, with heart pounding, I thought I heard my mother whisper, "Son, if you don't listen, you have to feel." Later, as we marched back to our hut area, I began to dig for the pony. I thought that underneath all this horse shit, there must be a reason. The answer was simple and obvious because it clarified what the DIs meant by making men out of us. These cruel and stupid drills were the means they used to simply qualify the men by separating the boys. My observations were soon substantiated because after the first week I noticed our platoon had grown smaller. I spoke of this to a couple of guys, named Shepard and Parker, who were in my original group from St. Louis. We agreed we were losing men, but how they were quietly disappearing was a mystery. One day a man was there and the next, he was gone, without any fanfare. The mystery was finally solved. One of the guys reported there was a fenced-in area near the sick bay called the 8-Ball Barracks. This is where he saw a few of our missing men. One of the men was Bernie, who told him he was waiting for his release papers to be completed, so he could return home. Bernie said he and the other men in the compound, from various platoons, had either asked to be discharged or were told they were being discharged on the basis they didn't meet Marine standards. A few were 16, like myself, who had lied about their age to join up but, once in, confessed their true age to get the hell out. This bit of information gave me much food for thought, for it presented an opportunity to rectify what I believed to be the worst mistake of my life. By nature, I was a loner who didn't work well in a controlled environment, and this was definitely a controlled environment. I found it extremely difficult to relate to anything that required and demanded 90% reaction and 10% brains. From what I had observed, the Marines were training men and attack dogs under the same program for the sole purpose that they instinctively react on command with blind obedience. I thought it amusing that they took pride in being called devil dogs and choosing a bulldog for its mascot and tattoo logo, without understanding the significance. Moreover, I regarded it preposterous that they claimed credit for building men when, in fact, they were only qualifying them through unreasonable methods, bordering on torture. Although this information could provide me with a quick ticket home, it also posed a conflicting personality dilemma. One part of me rationalized it was perfectly okay to petition and accept an underage discharge, considering I never wanted to be a Marine in the first place. After all, wasn't I practically shanghaied by fast-talking recruiters? To stay and endure a lifestyle completely repugnant was reason enough to bail out, especially when I realized the not-too-remote possibility of my being killed or crippled in action as a consequence to remaining. In addition, I told myself I would be welcomed home by my friends at Tony's and Arata's without any stigma or embarrassment because they initially disapproved of my going. As for my patriotic friends at Frank Simon's 7 to 11 lounge, I could tell them the truth, in part, which was that the government found out I was only 16 and sent me home. I felt that once they were acquainted with my true age, they would feel I was even more of a hero for trying. All these arguments sounded very reasonable and convincing, but in the final analysis, they didn't stand a chance against the pride I had in myself. For me to seek and accept an underage discharge would be a compromise impossible to live with, even if life itself depended on it. Unlike vanity, which can always be compromised, there is no such thing as having too much pride or too little. You either have it or you don't. This was one of the few times in my life I briefly reflected and related to the average man concerning how easily he could deal with such a problem. He would simply say, "If I like it, I stay; if I don't, I go." Pride could never be an issue in his decision. My determination regarding this incident served to corroborate and strengthen the understanding I always enjoyed with myself. Prior to that point in time, I really had no solid justification in claiming my self-esteem as being anything more than self-inflicted. Now, having undergone a crucial test, I considered it self-evident. After reaching my foregone conclusions to remain in the Marines, I remembered one of the short, but significant, sayings my mother often repeated to me dealing with life in general: "Son, they might kill you, but they can't eat you." I would worry about the killing part when the time came. Right then I needed something to keep these gung-ho bastards from chewing on me. Fortunately, when leaving St. Louis, I had anticipated the possibility of encountering unseen conflicts, and so I fortified well. When I arrived at boot camp, I had almost $1,000 in a money belt, which included the $500 I got from Arata. In 1942, $1,000 represented over a year's pay for the average working person lucky enough to have a job. By using some of this money for bribes, I soon had a special arrangement where I was left pretty much alone and could avoid all shit details, dirty duty. This was easy to set up because from the very first day at the Marine base, I surmised their system was corruptible. This impression was derived by my jacket being stolen and the Mickey Mouse shakedown rackets they were operating. The first morning, when I nearly scalped myself from being rudely awakened, 3 Marines entered the barracks carrying seed bags, duffel bags, and loudly called us to attention. One of them blatantly proceeded to inform us of a list of articles he described as being illegal contraband if discovered on recruits. These items consisted of candy, chewing gum, cigars, booze, drugs, dirty books and pictures, knives, guns, aftershave lotions, etc. He said that anyone possessing any of these things were commanded to place them in the seed bags as he and his assistant went through the barracks. Intimidated, most of the guys meekly submitted to this ripoff. Standing next to me was an Italian street kid named Joe I had met on the train from Los Angeles. He winked and whispered, "Fuck him, I wouldn't give him the sweat off my balls." I laughingly agreed with his grossly put, but truly encompassing viewpoint. Later, we became good friends when he invited me to join his small group.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel and like the video.